Hello. In this recording of our Justia Webinar, Business Development Foundations for B2B Law Firms, Neil Barrow shares with the audience strategies and tips regarding a successful business development plan, such as creating ideal client profiles, understanding the client journey, and how leadership can enable partners' success. Remember, if you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thanks, Justia. Good to not see everybody on here, but thanks for attending. It looks like it's me and the solo show here, but we're going to have some fun today around business development foundations for B2B law firms. As you can see from the name and the title of the presentation, let me get it pulled up here, is we're going to dive in to the structural components of business development. How many of you feel like that it sucks, right? It doesn't have to. It's a framework that we can put through and learn how to do. It's not a personality trait. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be frustrating. I'm sure most of you have dealt with this to some degree. And what we're going to do today is go through this and give you a framework to get better, things that you'll be able to activate today. So let's dive in. So a little bit about me. Enabled BD was founded in 2022. We have a passion for business development that's unique. And through our proprietary framework, we help firms thrive in uncertain times. Here's our core values. Client service. We are dedicated to client service, effective communication, and proactive advising. And as you can see from my experience in sales and business development leadership, I'm the right choice to help you navigate your business development needs. And here's how I do that. This is our services. So when we look at the services that I provide, I have a business development sprint that I take leadership through that unlocks exactly what you need to get to the next level for business development. And then that allows me to build the machine for you with leadership and advice. Stop. Okay, how many of you were just tuning out there? How many of you were like, oh my gosh, this is a commercial for this dude. Like, can we just get on with this thing? Do I even want to be here? But how many of us actually go into some meetings with people where we sound like this? We talk about the year that we were founded. We talk about our core values and dedication to client service. We talk in generalities about how we help. Then we give you a list of all the services that we can provide to you. Here's how we can help. But the key that's missing most times is trust, loyalty, like caring about you, the person that I'm talking to, and your problems and where you're at. And how does what I do and my experience actually apply to where you're at today? And so for the next 45 minutes, we're going to go through how to do this. We're going to look at how do we take our current client data? How do we understand where to spend our time and with whom? Then we're going to come up with some activities to get in front of those people to generate conversations. And then once we have those conversations, how do I not sound like that? How do I sound real? How do I focus on them? How do I become a trusted advisor? So here's our agenda today. Business development doesn't have to suck. So we're going to talk a little bit about business development mindsets. We're going to talk about the foundational frameworks for business development, a little bit about a client journey and what that can look like. So how do people buy and what is typical, good, bad, the ugly look like? We're going to look at how a firm can enable our partners and our people to go out and generate meaningful relationships. And then we'll take some, hopefully end with a bang, take some good Q&A and help you where you're at so you come away with tactical things to do. So when we look at business development, it's really about this mindset. So it's moving away from sales and pitching and outbound and all of this stuff that's a lot of noise around growth in general, And we're going to focus on what makes a good mindset going into conversations or really going into business development. And so, what is business development not? It's not a personality trait. It's not going to a bunch of happy hours and networking a bunch. It's not really being good at sales. So when you look at, I was working with a law firm about 18 months ago, and we were doing some pre-conference planning. So there was an annual association event, and we had a room full of the attorneys that were going to be attending. And I had a very senior partner in there ask a great question. And it was really centered around a skill set, not necessarily a mindset. He's a very personable guy, but he had a structural question, which surprised everyone in the room. And it was great because we created an environment where he felt comfortable asking this question. But we were going to an event with about 400 people. And he said, well, how am I supposed to meet people? And so that's what we were going to do, is meet people. But he had a question about structurally, what are some tactical things that he could do to generate meaningful conversations? And so we talked through that, and we talked through some tactical things that he could do. And he came away with the most follow-ups from that event. And so when we can build this skill set and get some reps in, just like you would work a muscle, we can have effective business development. So that's what it is. It's becoming a trusted advisor. And so there's this great book called Getting Naked. Now, I've got some book recommendations as we go through this, but Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni, it's centered around building trust. It's centered around how do we build trust with our clients, with our referral sources, with our prospective clients, with our network. And it's centered around these three obstacles: the fear of losing the business. And we're going to really center around that key piece here today. There's some of it feeling inferior, right? Because we focus on ourselves instead of them. And then there's also the fear of being embarrassed, where I'm afraid to ask a dumb question, or I'm afraid to put myself out there. And so we're going to talk through, again, how to structure your business development so that you can become the trusted advisor and have great outcomes through this. So how do you do that? Where do we even start? So I mentioned there's a lot of noise around growth. And here's some examples of what people are thinking about: social media, lead generation, webinars. The one thing that I hear time and time again from experienced partners is, hey, my business development plan was do good work, and then the work comes in. And that's great for someone who's been doing it for 20 or 30 years. But what happens whenever I'm a new partner or I'm coming up as an associate? Well, the number one way to generate business is referrals. And you already know this. So why are we focused on all the other stuff when we really need, as a business to business law firm or a practitioner or a solo, what am I supposed to do? Well, I need to double down on the referrals. So referrals are the number one new source of business. And until you get to a certain point, they will continue to do that. But we want to ignore that because we want to say, oh, well, our clients will call us if they need us. They know what we do. And in reality, that's typically not the case. Yeah, we have some that think about us from time to time, but how do we proactively generate new relationships, generate deeper relationships with our network so that we can generate more referrals? Well, how do we do this? Well, it's centered around the foundational work and getting focused on business development and where to spend our time. Because there's so much that you can do for business development. What I see in my work with clients is focus is the actual key piece, is where do I focus, who do I focus on, and what do I need to be doing? And it really all starts with client data. So what is our client information telling us? What are our current clients, current matters that we're working on? What is it telling us that where we need to spend our time? Then how do we build this ideal client profile? I'm sure you've heard ideal client profile. Maybe some of you have done this work before, but finding those buckets of commonalities of people that we serve best, that hire us, how do we build those buckets? And then what do we say to them? What is our message to them? So then we're going to put some stuff together, and that's going to be our pause at the end. So thinking about messaging, how do you talk about yourselves, or what is your message to your ideal clients? So I love this quote by Tim Ferriss. If y'all are familiar with him, he's the author of the 4-Hour Work Week and other things, but cultivate the intense few instead of the lukewarm many. How many of you out there, if you got 5 clients like your best clients, you would hit all of your revenue goals that you have for yourself? So when you distill it down, I don't need 100 new clients. I need 5 really, really good ones this year. And so how do we focus ourselves and time to do that? And so this is how I think about helping individuals and firms with client information. So when we look at our billing or practice management or wherever we're keeping our clients, we usually look at that through a matter lens, like the work we're doing for them and the billing that's coming out in AR, right? But in reality, we need to look at it through a relationship lens. How strong are our relationships with our best clients? And so, as you can see, I've got some examples of the information that I look at whenever I'm advising clients. And it's centered around just the clients, the client name, their relationship strength. So when we think about, and I'll dive into this a little bit, but how strong is our relationship with this client? Are they professional, a relationship, which means that I just do the work when they call me? Are they collegial, which is, hey, I will go grab lunch or breakfast with them. I'll talk to them every once in a while about non-matters stuff. Or are they a friend where I'll text and we'll hang out? And so when we think about that through a relationship lens, that lets us know how to deepen our relationships with our current clients. And that does a couple different things. It de-risks the relationship, right? So it keeps them close to us. And then it also allows us to generate referrals, introductions, and be that trusted advisor to them. Then I also look at the services. So what services are we providing to our best clients? What industries are they in? Can we find any commonalities around industry or size of company or the buyer profile or just the vibe of the companies that are hiring us, growth mindset? So those can all equal different tiers of clients. And then where did those clients come from? So referral source. So a lot of firms don't track the referral source as it relates to the client. So who sent us this client? Where did they hear about us? If it was word of mouth. Some of you might have good SEO, and so you're just getting some inbound. And so we need to attribute that to just inbound or website or whatever that looks like. So I need to understand where our business is coming from, because again, that's going to provide us with some focus areas for us to develop more referrals. And then realization. So thinking about billing realization. So hours worked for my time, and then how much did I bill, right? And so what is that percentage? When we're looking at client data, we want to find commonalities within our list. So one of the things that I ask is, what traits do your best or most enjoyable clients share? Again, I talked about some of these. Is it a particular industry? Is it a particular size? I work with startups. I work with mid-market firms that have 20 million to 100 million in revenue. I work with firms that don't have a GC, right? What is the commonality that we can shake out to develop these buckets of clients? And it doesn't have to be one. It can be multiple. It can be, I work with healthcare companies on X service, or I work with mid-market companies on Y service. And so we can put these focus as you start chopping up and thinking about your clients through a relationship lens, then we can start putting these buckets together. Tier 2 are good clients, but not necessarily a focus. So when we think about broad versus narrow, and we'll talk through that on the messaging front, but this is really the key, is I want to find the perfect clients and then have the good clients, because I still need to build relationships with them, but it might not exactly be the message I want to provide to the market. Then we want to think about why those clients hired us. So we're going to make assumptions, but oftentimes what we assume or why we assume that they hired us is just not the case. So I was talking to a friend recently about this. She did work with a professional service firm, and she called their clients. She did some client work and client surveys. And what he said that they hired him for is because that he does good work, that he's an expert in his field. Why the clients said that they hired him is because of his work ethic. He's always available. I know he's working on my stuff. I can trust him to know that he's doing what we need him to do in the background. And so that message kind of changed, and his message to the market changes, and his value changes because now he's aligning his client message to the market. And then when we think about who are competitors in this space, so what were the client's alternatives to choosing us? What were they doing before working with us? Why did they choose us? And then what were their options that they were looking at? And what this allows us to do is understand how to differentiate ourselves. How do we look, smell different, sound different than the other options that are out there? So are we a solo? And so now we've got a different value than working with a larger firm. And so how do we build that into our messaging? So those are some questions to ask as we're going through this ideal client profile. Once we get the tiers, then understanding why they hired us, then understanding what their alternatives are, helps us craft a very tight message. And here's examples. So I set families up for generational success. So it's a very simple phrase, very simple sentence. But what does that imply? That implies that I work with high net worth families that might have a company attached to them that are dealing with Gen 2 or Gen 3. I'm an advisor to DFW manufacturing and distribution owners who are working internationally. Think about that as a focus area. So it's a region, it's an industry, and then it's a very specific thing that those industries are dealing with. So imagine being able to provide that message to the market. You're going to attract your tier one clients to you with this message. When you talk to referral sources, when you go out and do the activity to generate new conversations, this is how you can be specific. Now, I hear a lot of pushback. Well, Neil, okay, I like to be a generalist. I like to do all this work for different clients. It's what makes it interesting. And I get that. But doing this work does not detract from the other stuff that you're going to receive. So it's not at the detriment to getting business. It's about pulling in the perfect clients for you when you're talking to people in the market. So hopefully this gives you an idea, and I'm happy to give you mine. So I help B2B law firms build their business development function. That's it. Under $30 million in revenue. So that provides a size, that provides a very specific thing that I do for them. It's not coaching, it's not training, even though that might be implied, but it's I help them build their business development function. So this is our first pause. So I'm going to give everybody a minute. I want to take volunteers. And so I'm going to talk through as we go through the minute, but I'd like for someone to volunteer, multiple people, if you'd like, and share your message. So thinking about the ideal clients that you serve, thinking about why they hired you, thinking about your perfect client and what separates you from other alternatives. What is a simple message that you could provide to the group to share your message? So we'll give another 30 seconds for that. And I love awkward pauses. So we might just spend the rest of the time here if we need to.
Oh, I see one named Samuel. I'll allow him to talk.
Awesome. Thanks, Samuel. Way to go. Let's hear it.
I work purposefully and passionately on projects that make positive impacts in the world.
Awesome. So that tells about your impact and what's driving you, right? I would challenge you to help frame that in a way that where I would know, am I a fit to talk to you more? Right? How do I know as a person that's in the market for an attorney, how do I know that I fit into that?
We also have another volunteer named Lawrence.
Great work, Samuel. Okay, Lawrence.
Hello. I demystify the commercial leasing process for landlords and tenants.
Boom. Love it. Thank you, Lawrence. No feedback. Regionally, are you national? Are you in a region or in a state? Right? Yes.
In Florida.
In Florida. So let's add in Florida to that. I love that. Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Samuel and Lawrence. I appreciate y'all's vulnerability and getting out there and sharing and having a group. Those were great examples. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to take that. So we talked about ideal clients and we talked about messaging in general. And now we're actually going to build the plan. So going through the who's and creating the what's. What are we going to do? So I want to take a moment here for those that are just getting started with business development, right? So you might have come in with some preconceived notions around what business development is. It's sales, it's this, it's that. I don't like it. I love it, whatever. But we're going to talk about if you're just getting started, it's very, very simple. It's a mindset and coming up with some ideas. And then we'll talk about some books to read to kind of help you with your journey. And then we're really going to get into the building of the frameworks for those that have built a network, that have clients, that have these things going on and need to grow. And then we'll get more into the tactical piece. But so we need to focus on building our relationships in the communities you're already in. Thinking about any activity is good activity. Get out there, mix it up, right? We can focus on our network around alumni, our colleagues internally and externally, going to the bar associations. When you think about people, send them an email, send them a text, right? Just trainings cannot take the place of actually going out and talking to folks, right? So you're going to have to exercise, just like you go to the gym, you're going to have to go and exercise these muscles. And so it can't take the place of actually just calling somebody, sending the email. And so really focusing on who you already know, who is already in your orbit, and that'll help you just get started. And here's some book recommendations that have helped me throughout my career and continue to help me. And some are actually very new. And so Getting Naked, I'd mentioned. Gap Selling, which is centered around the client has a problem. They're here. They want to be here. And how do I help identify this gap and provide them with solutions to that gap? The Go-Giver by Bob Berg is a classic. It's all centered around how do I go out and create value for people. The Shortlist by David Ackert, he's great BD mind, been doing it for a long time, consultant out there. He just wrote a book called The Shortlist. It's very applicable to what we're talking about today. It's helping you build a tight relationship core, and then how do you actually activate them? And then the last one is Jolt Effect. And this is all centered around a buyer's mindset. Is most of the reasons we get ghosted, right? So we'll talk more about that later. But hey, we'll have a great meeting with somebody and then they don't respond. And so they don't respond to our follow-ups. And the whole reason behind that is because they don't know how to make a decision. They don't know how to choose. They just rather stay with where they're at. You know what? We're fine. Actually, it's not a big deal, right? So those are some recommendations on if I were just getting started, some things, and even mid-career like me, late career, like these can always be helpful. So now here's a warning. This is going to be technical business development structure. So I'm going to try to keep this as fun as possible, but we're really going to talk about how to build your plan. And so when you think about a business development plan, it all starts with your client development, what we've talked about, your ideal client profiles, right? So what is your ideal client? And then we move up and add referral sources and then add prospective clients. And then we really focus mainly on your brand broadly. What does that look like? And so we're going to start with client development plan. And so when you look at the chart that we showed earlier, here's where I want to focus on when I'm developing my client development plan. And it's centered around relationship strength, the services that I provide, the industries and commonalities that they share, whether that's size or industry, and then the profitability of this client. And so taking all of those things into consideration, we can build our ideal client profile plan. So this is how we do that, is we're going to do exactly what we talked about earlier, tier your clients by considering, who do I love working with? Who makes us the most money? What types of services do I like doing? So you might like working on particular matters. So like Lawrence shared with landlords and tenants in Florida. So he likes that work. Doesn't mean that he doesn't do other things. It means that that's the work that he likes to do. So those are his perfect clients. And so when we think about tiering those out, then we can rank the tiers by relationship strength. And I like to look at it because we're taking a relationship lens focus to our clients. So again, here's how I think about that. A professional relationship is I just do work for them. Collegial relationship is, hey, we'll interact, we'll go hang out at 1 to 2 times a year. And a friend, as I text them, and we'll go to ball games or we'll go do stuff together, they become a friend as a client. And so when we think about each of those relationships and where they stand, how do I develop and deepen these relationships with my existing clients? And again, we assume that our clients know what we do. Hey, if I call my clients, that's bothering them. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pitch them other things that I could help with. But it's really about how do we become that proactive, trusted advisor with our best and ideal clients? So then we're going to write that down, the activity that we're going to do for each relationship and a due date. So I will reach out to John via email and invite him to lunch by the end of March. So again, all of this that we're going to be talking about today is not the silver bullet AI. This is work. This is keeping you organized, and this is holding you accountable to doing the activity that you know you need to do to become that trusted advisor or to deepen those relationships. I love talking with clients about their professional relationships and how do I move them to collegial? Because I guarantee you, if you go through your clients and you all call them and you say, hey, how's 2025 going? Any big things on your radar? Anything I could be helping with or keeping an eye out for you? You're going to get new matters. You're going to get new opportunities. So this is the simplification of a client development plan. So this is how you build that plan. When we have our client development plan centered out with the activities, with what we're going to do, with our goals for them, now it's how do we develop the referral sources that brought our best clients in? So here's going back to our chart. Here's the referral sources for our best clients and for our really good clients. And so I need to know who's referring us. So we're going to rank those referral sources. So who are the best referral sources? Who in my network? And then the next step is who in my network, who am I already connected to that looks like my best referral sources? So in my experience at firms, you get a lot of referrals from other attorneys. And so identifying those attorneys that refer us matters, refer us new clients. How do I duplicate that with people that I already know? So can I go through my LinkedIn? Can I go through my Rolodex? Can I go through my phone and see who I know that kind of fits in with my best referral sources? Who out there do I not have a great relationship with that I probably need to get to know better that looks like my best referral sources? Then we're going to think about those relationships and set a goal. How often do I want to meet with them? Is it a once a month lunch? Is it a once a quarter ping? Hey, how are things going? Thought of you today. But I need to put that together and see what makes sense for my capacity. So one thing that I didn't really describe, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, is all of this is centered around doing things that you want to do and then making sure that you have the capacity to do them. So sometimes you'll get super slammed and you won't have any time for a couple weeks to do any business development, and that's okay. But when it's time to do business development activities, we need to keep it as consistent as possible because now I've got my clients organized. I have my referral sources organized. I know what I'm going to do for my brand, and it makes it easy for us to do. So consider capacity as y'all are going through this. Make it realistic and practical. Then once we think about those relationships, then we're going to think about the activity that we're going to do, and then we're going to put a due date together. So, hey, again, just like we talked about with clients, hey, by the end of this quarter, I need to reach out to this person. And so we're going to assign those. This shouldn't be more than, some of you, it'll be 5 to 10. Some of you, it might be 30, 40, 50, but it should be as tight a list as possible. And here's a little bonus. What I've found most effective is if we can identify our best referral sources, and then we can put them together for a once a quarter get together. We're going to all get together. So some of you might already have that. Some of you maybe have been thinking about it. Well, this is your sign to do that. Is what do I like to do? Do I like to play poker, go golfing, happy hour, just do lunches, breakfast, whatever that looks like? How do I get my best people in my sphere together to go hang out so we can continue to develop that relationship and we're top of mind for each other? So that's how to build your referral source development plan. So we got our clients, we got a plan for them. We got a referral source plan. Now we're going to get a prospective client development plan. And when we're creating our prospective client development plan, it's based on your ideal client profile. Let's build a small list. So going back to Lawrence, right, in the real estate world, what size of developers or investors or tenants or people does he work with? And then who else in my market in Florida or where I live? Who are those companies that I need to know that I don't know? It shouldn't be more than 10, 20 at max. And then I'm going to think about my best clients and referral sources. So who is most likely to know these people? Because again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I only need 5 really good clients this year to move the needle. Like if I can find 5 clients that look like my best 5 clients, then I'm going to have a really good year. And so who is most likely to help make this connection for me, this introduction? Going back to the easiest way for us to generate new business is through referrals. So we're going to go through that. We're going to think about our referral sources and our clients, and we're going to think about these companies and who might know who. Hey, John, the banker, might know this company because he works on healthcare. Hey, my client Susan might know this colleague over here based on what I saw on LinkedIn. So then we can make those asks. The next time we see him, the next time we talk to him, hey, was wondering if you could help me. I'm trying to get it. I think this would be a great client for me. And so then how do we do that effectively to create our prospect development plan? What did I not say? I didn't say, hey, let's send him a cold email. Hey, let's send them let's get a lead gen company to target them with ads. I didn't say that, right? I said, hey, let's find somebody that knows them and let's ask for the connection. So a bonus is to identify connections that have moved to different companies. So this is a great way to see within your existing relationships who has moved roles, who has moved firms, who's a great referral, who's referred me a client or a matter that moved to a different law firm or that started their own boutique, right? Went out on their own. So how do we connect the dots with people and identify those folks that could be helpful after they make a switch? So again, crafting your entire business development plan, the last thing and a really important part of it is what I'm calling your brand. So where does everybody that I've done the work for, clients, referral sources, prospective clients, where do they hang out? Are they in association? So going back to Lawrence, hey, Real Estate Council, Urban Land Institute, that's really construction and developers and people in real estate. I probably need to go hang out there. And then what are my goals for the association? Initially, it's to join and network. But hey, could I speak? Hey, could I get on the board? Hey, could I do some of these things that are going to generate my brand awareness within this group of community That is my ideal client profile or my ideal referral sources. Conferences, right? ABA, industry annual conferences. Are my referral sources and clients going to be hanging out at these places? And should I invest my time and energy getting involved or going to these annual conferences? And I've got a big hot sports opinion about conferences. We need to do the work. We need to pre-plan. We need to do our follow-ups afterwards. We need to have a dinner. We need to set up meetings before we go. Because if we don't, we're not going to see the return on our time and our investment in that to build a better network and a deeper relationships within that community. LinkedIn. So some of you might, if you need to take a moment to unroll your eyes when I talk about LinkedIn, how do I speak to my best referral sources around that are hanging out in LinkedIn? So when you think about the business community, they're on LinkedIn. Some of the best connectors are on LinkedIn. So this allows me to stay top of mind when I have a recent case, or if I want to talk about a client conversation where, hey, was talking with a client the other day about employment issues, and here are the 3 things we discussed. So it's education and it's brand. It's not sending my corporate, hey, we celebrated our 10th year anniversary at ABC Law Group. It's not that. It's personal. So how am I developing my personal brand? And then generically online. So what would my best clients and referral sources, what would they need to see from me? Is it a newsletter? Is it a webinar? Is it video content? Is it educational? What is it that I need to do, but I like to do, I'm committed to doing it. I think it would be kind of fun. So framing this in a capacity framework, where what do I have capacity to spend my time on? Because you can't do it all. But what is going to be in your mind the area that you want to spend your time when you're thinking about your brand? And these are some examples of where I would start plugging in. I know me as I'm a solo consultant. And so I don't have a lot of time between my client work and my own business development and the stuff that I've got to do for my business and then family. I don't have a lot of time. And so I'm really only in one association. And that's what I have time to do now. But I've got 3 others that are on my radar that I know I need to get involved in. I just don't have the time right now. And that's okay. So I'd rather go deeper than wider. So this is another pause point. So I know we covered a lot. We covered the client development plan. So setting activities around our best clients to deepen relationships, to move them from professional, collegial to friend. We talked about our referral source development plan, identifying where our best clients came from, were they referral, were they word of mouth, where do they come from, and how do I generate activities and deepen relationships with my best referral sources and then generate new ones. Prospective client, identifying, based on our ideal client profile, creating a small list of companies that I'd like to know and sharing that with my best relationships to see who has a connection, and then brand. So this is 20 seconds into the 1-minute break. What is one activity? I'm going to get a volunteer. So start raising your hand, click the button. What is one activity you will do right after this presentation? Is it going to be, I'm going to call this client. I know I need to call them and I need to catch up with them. Is it, I'm going to set a lunch with this client? Am I going to build my client list? Is it going to be, hey, you know what? I need to post on LinkedIn, or hey, I need to join this association. So can I get some volunteers on what is one thing you will do out of all the things we talked about? What is one thing you will do right after this presentation?
We've got one volunteer, Kara. Let me go ahead and allow to talk. There you go.
All right. Kara?
Thanks. Yeah, I never thought to actually write out where my referrals are coming from and what patterns I could see in them. So I'm definitely going to do that.
Awesome. That's probably one of the most valuable things you can do. Thank you, Kara, for sharing that. Is just knowing where your business is coming from. And how do we organize that and just kind of there's going to be ones on there that probably surprise you and say, oh yeah, I haven't talked to that person in like 9 months, 2 years. And so I should probably call them and catch up. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, we've got Amanda.
All right. Thank you, Amanda.
Hi. I'm gonna go in and update my LinkedIn profile because before
There
I
we go.
editing people, I want to make sure it's has all like the right info.
I love that. Thank you, Amanda. That's a key point, right? So if your LinkedIn profile is not updated, need to do that. And you can use some of the exercises that we've gone through today to craft a good about me, a good section about who you serve. So you can update that. So I think that's great. And I know that y'all have LinkedIn presentations through this, so we're not going to get super into that, but I think that's a great thing to do. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Kara. So we've talked about the mindset. We've talked about BD plan. We've the client data, the messaging. We've talked about how to structure your business development plan. Now let's talk about the client journey. So we've talked about the who, what are we going to do? And now that we're going to generate conversations, what can that look like? What should that look like? And some good client meetings, bad client meetings, some barriers to doing business with you that you might be creating. So when we think about a bad client journey, hey, we got a referral. I'm not going to do any planning because I'm awesome and I'm just going to show up and we're going to talk. And then I'm going to send you pricing afterwards. And then I don't hear anything back. And so I wonder why I didn't hear anything back. Well, because we didn't help them understand what their options are and how to make a decision to choose us or not, and to feel comfortable telling us no. Or we didn't do a good enough job understanding if it was an actual opportunity before we sent pricing. So when we think about getting a referral, we've got to do our pre-meeting research so we can come in with some ideas for them. Hey, is this a startup company? Is it a growing company? Did they just expand? Did they hire this? Did they do that? So I need to come in with some frames of reference on who this person is that I'm talking to and what's been going on in their business. So I can come in with some assumptions. Then I'm going to have a discovery meeting. And what a discovery meeting looks like, it's not legal discovery, right? It's client business development discovery. And I need to understand what their problem is, why can't they fix it, what are their options, and then I need to make a recommendation, whether that's me or whether that's someone else, and I need to be that trusted advisor for them. So again, going back to getting naked, it's how do we immediately jump in and start helping and consulting them by asking really good questions. And then once that's a yes, I can help you, yes, you want it, then it's an opportunity. Do I need to set a second meeting or are they ready to go? Right? Did I talk pricing so I don't necessarily have to send a proposal? So there's some things along the way that we need to structure and that sometimes we create barriers because we haven't, our internal process and how we approach this creates challenges for them to do business with us. So for one example, I was working with a client and we were talking about an opportunity that they had. And he told me that he was working on a proposal. And so I said, whoa, well, let's back up. How did the meeting go? What were the expectations for the meeting? What did they say when you told them your budget or your pricing? And he looked at me and said, well, we didn't talk about pricing. So that's a problem. If I didn't talk about pricing, if the first time the potential client is seeing my hourly rate or my pricing for a project, and the first time they're seeing that price or hearing that price is in my proposal, I've done something wrong. Because now I haven't understood, is this even realistic for you? And so what we did was we paused our business development meeting. He made a call to the client, ended up getting them on the phone and told them, hey, before I put a lot of work into this proposal, I just wanted to make sure we've got some pricing. Is this range okay for you? Is that within what you were thinking about? And the client actually said, no, that's a lot higher than what we were thinking. And I said, well, we're going to be doing, so then he did a great job sharing the value of what he provided, saying, well, the reason that you came to me was because of this, and this is what we're going to fix. So is that something that's going to be a big problem in your evaluation of a new provider? And the answer was no. And so we ended up doing that proposal and he ended up winning it. And so when we think about presenting asking great questions to make sure that we're helping the client make a decision, this is the best way to do that. And so here's some ideas, not that you'll go through these steps every time, and everybody's business is different. So this is just a generic client journey that's included with everything. So you might skip a lot of these steps, or you might go through this with larger clients, but this gives you some ideas about what questions do I need to ask, or what do I need to prepare for at each stage along the road, so that I have the best chance to help them make a decision and get what they need. So remember this, right? This is about building client loyalty. This is about building trust. So consult, don't sell. We want to give it away. I work with a lot of people that want to hold, hey, this is our plan. I don't want to share my plan with them because they're just going to take it and run away with it. Well, guess what? If they took it to another provider, another law firm, another attorney, one they're already working with, would they have actually been a good client for us? The answer is probably no. They would have probably maybe used us for this one if we were somehow able to get chosen to do it, but then they're going to talk to somebody else, right? So I don't see this as a scarcity thing when I'm giving everything away, because that's how we build trust quickly. And so just like me, I'm telling you exactly how to do it all. There's nothing that I'm holding back on how I work with clients. Obviously, there's a lot of details to go, but why clients hire me is because they need help implementing this. They need help with certain things, accountability, right? They can't do it on their own. And those are the clients that you want to attract too. So we need to build loyalty by giving it away. Entering the danger over here, fear of losing the business, enter the danger. That means I need to key in and ask really hard questions. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. So consulting to the why, not the how. So most of us will go into these meetings and we'll just jump in to consult to the how. Well, oh, you've got this employment problem? Well, let me tell you how we'll do this. Okay, you've got this matter, you've got this transaction problem. Let me tell you how we'll do it. And not, why is this super important for you right now? What is actually happening where you're trying to figure this out now? Or is it a now thing, or is it down the road thing? And so I'm not going to go through this, but here's a great first conversation. I need to empathize with their problem. I need to understand their options as the expert. And then I need to give them my recommendation. And one of my favorite phrases is, if I were you, I would do this. Based on what we talked about, if I were you, here's your options and here's what I would do. And that may not include me. And so we need to be comfortable giving that advice. So here's some caution, right? We need to keep an eye out for what I call yesing. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds great. Oh, yeah, I can do that. So some of these are going to probably sound familiar to a lot of you. So how about we say, what exactly would you like to see from me to help you make this decision if we're a right fit? Instead of, sure, let me send you a proposal. How about I say, hey, why don't we go ahead and get some time, tentative meeting for next week to give you some time to review once I send you this, instead of saying, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and take some time. We'll follow up in a couple weeks. Because what does that do? That delays the process. That doesn't help them. We might think, oh, well, that might feel salesy, but that's not true. What I'm trying to do is help them solve this problem. They said it was urgent. They said they needed help. So how about I offer to set some time next week while we're on the call? So how about we say, I know I can be helpful here. Would it be okay if I walk through how to get started, instead of just dismounting? Well, let me know what else you need. Like, let me know how I can be helpful. We love to sign off our emails like that when we send proposals or when we send service quotes. Another thing, never send a proposal except when you have to, like RFPs or complex selling, right? But what I've found in my career is that proposals are a crutch to not ask hard questions. And so instead of me asking about, saying, hey, this is going to cost you probably between 30 to 40,000, is that in line with what you were expecting? I'm just going to send a proposal. Instead of me saying, hey, when do you need to get started? I send a proposal. Instead of me making a real recommendation for you, I send you a menu of my services with my hourly rates. And then I'm asking you to figure that out and figure out what you need, and then let me know. So I'm asking you to do work for me. And so a lot of proposals are these crutches. So keep an eye out for that. Review your tape. The best athletes in the world get better through reviewing their form. So think about using a recorder. A lot of our things are virtual now. So we need to record these and kind of key in what questions did I ask. I liked how I said that. I didn't like how I said that. So here's my last exercise. I'm going to take volunteers. We're running out of time. What question are you going to integrate into your conversations to be the advisor your clients need? And so how I think about that is, what common questions do I get that are asked of me during the process of talking to a potential client? What are some common questions that I get that I need to ask up front? So this one's a little bit more challenging than the other exercises, but can I get a volunteer about it? What's a good question that you're going to start asking your new prospective clients or referral sources based on what we had talked about?
We've got a volunteer named Catherine. Catherine, go ahead.
Catherine, thank you.
One of the questions that I always ask clients towards the beginning is, are there any questions I can answer for you before we get started? But also, what are your financial goals and what do you expect to accomplish with your case?
That's really good. So what outcome do they want? That's great. So setting expectations around why they're talking to you. That's a great example. One of the questions that I love to ask whenever I'm talking with somebody is like, hey, I've got a bunch of stuff we can talk about, a lot of questions I can ask, but for our meeting today, what is a good outcome for you? So thank you, Catherine. That's great. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. But this is how you put it all together. So when you talk about enablement, people view business development in two different paths. One is business development origination. I'm going to hire Neil to go generate my firm new clients. When we need to think about starting enablement, I'm going to hire Neil to help me go generate new clients. And so this is for firms that have teams where how do we come together to create the machine? So keep it simple. I gave you a generic one based on the work that I've done with a lot of my clients, but I want to set a goal. I want to make it realistic and practical. It can be monetary. It can be relationship based. It can be volume based. We got to keep it simple. Then we're going to use the major buckets to build my list and activities. So we talked about clients, referral sources, and prospective clients. So what am I going to do with each of those buckets to drive activity that will generate conversations? And then the last one is build my brand. So what am I going to do to build my brand? So we talked about associations and conferences, small hosted get-togethers, online content, webinars, social media. So thinking about goals to activity with the right people to building my brand at scale. So how do we do that? And that's the exercise that's putting it all together to create your business development plan. And then we're going to create group meetings. So this creates accountability. I'm a big fan of public shaming. So let's get everybody in a room and we're going to talk about our individual plans. And if you show up with a 0, like you didn't do anything, you didn't generate any new conversations with your network, then now we can coach and now we can help people do that. So what support do you need from the firm to do that? So I think about it in the practice groups. Within industry groups, once you reach a certain size, industry groups require you to kind of be a little bit larger. And then in business development meetings, so how does a business development meeting work? Are we reviewing all the opportunities at the firm? So all the conversations that we've had, are they organized? Are we tracking them? So those are the types of group meetings that I want to have if I'm a firm that are practical. So some of you might just meet as a practice group, right? Or just have a business development meeting, or you might have a combination. Then the biggest challenge to most firms is creating this culture of growth. And so we want to lead from the front. So as the leader of the firm, as a solo, whatever, I want to lead and show the why. Hey, everybody's busy, but I'm showing that I'm meeting with my network. I'm generating relationships. And it's not because I've got a personality to do it. It's because I've got a plan. I want to help my people develop professionally. So we mentioned some books. Do I need to invest in coaching in these people? Do I need to coach them? Do I need to meet one-on-one with them? Are we going to create trainings for the firm to support the function? So are we going to host external speakers to come in and speak to our group about LinkedIn, about business development, about relationship building? And then I need to tie all of the things that we're doing into annual reviews. So, hey, you set a goal this year to develop 2 new referral sources. Were you able to do that this year, right? Or you wanted to grow healthcare relationships. Talk to me about your relationships in healthcare that you've grown this year. And so creating that culture requires these different buckets. And it's a big impact to the entire firm. So this is the TLDR. I fell asleep. I don't remember what you were talking about. So here's the highlights. We identify the who. Ideal client profile through your client data. We're going to create our lists, and then we're going to create our messaging. Then the what. We're going to identify and put due dates around activities for very few people, right? This could be 5, 10, 15 people. We're going to build the entire plan, client development, referral source development, prospect development, and then brand. And then we're going to execute, and we're going to find things that we hate doing, that we don't want to do, that we don't have time to do, that we love to do. And we're going to double down on what we love to do. And then the how. We need to ask great questions. We need to be the trusted advisor. We don't need to talk about me, right? What I led off with, we don't need to do that. We don't need to sound like that. We need to create accountability through group meetings and build the culture through leadership. And so again, I'm Neil Barrow, founder of Enabled BD, and would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to stay connected to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. And I've shared your LinkedIn in the chat for those who may want to connect with you there. We can move on to questions. So just a reminder, folks, if you do have questions, please feel free to submit them through that Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. We can go ahead and take those for a few minutes. All right, looks like we've got our first question there. What are some common mistakes lawyers make when defining their ideal client profile? How can I avoid them?
It's a great question. So a common mistake is we have a wish, like we don't have any clients in that market, right? Or that industry or that segment. And so we need to start with what we're already doing, and then we can grow into it. But if you start there, it's a lot harder and more inefficient than it is if you just start with where you're at. If you're first starting out, it's okay, because now if you're on your own and first starting out, then you have time to do business development because you don't have much client work. So then it becomes easy to create that segment, and you want to get it as tight as possible. And it can be multiple buckets, but try to get it as tight as possible. Like with Lawrence, all we had to do was add in Florida. That made it a lot tighter. Thanks for the question.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. Our next question is, are there specific strategies for making the most out of conferences or industry events that you would say?
Yes, there are. I do a lot of training around that. And so briefly, it's around every conference has an association app. Every association has the attendee list. You need to ask for it. Can you get it? And then I need to build in about 6 weeks before I go. I need to build in meetings. I need to start reaching out to my network. I need to start reaching out to those people, sponsors, speakers. All that information is on the website typically. And so I need to go there. And then all of that doesn't matter unless you've got a plan to follow up with everyone. And so the follow-up is the key to the whole conference. And if you'd like to talk more about that, I've got a quick Loom video. I'm happy to shoot you. I just did that the other day. So those are some ideas briefly.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. And aside from that video, this next question came through while you were talking about follow-up. What would you say is the most effective way to follow up without seeming pushy?
The most effective way to follow up without seeming pushy is asking hard questions during the first meeting. So if we're feeling like they're not responding, it's because they're busy. It's because other things popped up. They got family stuff, right? Like we've all got stuff going on. And so what they wanted to talk about was a priority right then. And so we need to make sure that we can ask the hard questions to know when to follow up. Hey, can we go ahead and set another meeting, right? So thinking about that pre-meeting work, the last part is to answer your question actually is adding value. Hey, was thinking about you the other day. I thought this might be an interesting connection for you. I met with this person. Would that be good? So it's completely unrelated to the matter at hand, right? So how can I think about ways to add value to follow up without following up?
Awesome. Thanks for that perspective. And then our next question is, what tools or systems do you recommend for tracking your business development progress and just making sure you're accountable?
I, I've heard of this thing. It's called Excel. It's really cool. So I talk to a lot of firms and it's really about practicality, right? And so what is practical for you to use? It's whatever system works. I've had some clients that organize it in Outlook. I have some clients that organize it in a spreadsheet. I have some that go download a free CRM. There's great Pipedrive or HubSpot or Attio. There's a lot of different tools out there that you can use to get organized. Even Notion, right? Tools like that, project management tools. So again, it comes down to what's going to be practical that you won't view as admin that's actually going to add value. And so I would recommend starting with something simple and getting the rhythm. And then once you get the rhythm, then do we need to move to a CRM to have a little bit more robust technical things that we can do through it.
Awesome. Thank you. And then our last question for today is, how do I identify gaps in my client journey that might be leading to me losing opportunities?
Yeah, good question. So the easiest way that I found is, are you getting ghosted? Where, when, how, right? And thinking about those opportunities in the past where you've had to follow up and you get crickets. And so, okay, what could I have done differently during that meeting? What questions could I have asked? Because oftentimes when we think we have an opportunity to help, those really truly aren't opportunities. Those are wishes. And so I need to understand if they're ready to hire me today, or is this a next year thing, or is this a later down the road after I tackle these 3 big initiatives? So what is it that's going to stand in the way of us hiring and getting hired? And so how I look at that is starting with the ghosting, like going through the old opportunities and finding those areas where you've been ghosted, and then doing some thinking around what could I have asked differently there.
Awesome. Thank you for all of your insight, Neil, with the presentation. And thank you all for participating with your questions as well as volunteering. We really appreciate it. We want to thank you all so much for joining us for another Justia webinar. As I mentioned earlier today, we want to bring back up that great tool to help you enhance your professional presence, the Justia Lawyer Directory. If you haven't claimed your free profile yet, visit lawyers.justia.com to get started. With millions of monthly visits, it's a powerful way to connect with high-value leads and get started on that client journey that we explored today. You can also even use our free Justia AI Bio Enhancer to complete your profile with a compelling, well-crafted biography that's specific to your expertise. If you want even more exposure, we also offer Justia Premium Placements, Platinum for the top spot, and Gold to appear above those organic listings. If you'd like to find out more about those, you can visit marketing.justia.com and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.